Downloading development coming up on Face the State. The plans for Google to expand in not one, but two Central Ohio cities. 53 years since the Kent State University shooting. How what happened on campus helped lead to protests across the country. And social media and children. What new findings reveal from the On Our Sleeves movement. When you Google something in the future, the Buckeye State might be helping power that search. This morning, we're learning more about how data centers will be built in Central Ohio, one in Columbus and one in Lancaster. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on Face the State. I'm Tracy Townsend. 10 TV News reporter Kevin Landers takes us to that announcement.
Google's announcement today was short on specifics, including how many jobs its data centers in South Columbus and Lancaster will create. But even without those numbers, one thing was abundantly clear. Google has data centers in just 13 states and has 3 of them now in Ohio. Data is driving Ohio's economy. Today, Google announced it's building 2 data centers that help power your search for maps and Gmail on your phone. The investment, along with a data center already operational in New Albany, totals $2 billion in investments. It was welcome news for a city like Lancaster, which had the land, water, and power to bring Google to its front door.
Puts us on the map for other opportunities going forward. If Google moves here, then, we kind of have the Google seal of approval.
I know that a new data center tends to start with 50 or 60 jobs, and it grows from there. And as I said in my remarks, we're only in 13 states, and we're going to have 3 fully operational data centers powering our tools, powering what we do in cloud and AI and search right here in Central Ohio.
The Google data center in South Columbus is just north of Scioto Downs. The one in Lancaster is in the Rock Mill Industrial Park, and that one is expected to be open in the summer. Reporting downtown, Kevin Landers, 10 TV News.
And with tech development like this, Central Ohio is becoming known as the Silicon Heartland. And we have to mention Intel's expansion in Licking County. Intel's $20 billion project is the largest in state history. The goal is to have 2 plants online by 2025. When it opens, there will be 3,000 employees. Intel says it could end up spending more than $100 billion to build 8 plants, making it one of the largest semiconductor manufacturing sites in the world. Electric vehicles, hybrid cars. What's next when it comes to personal transportation? Well, experts who spoke this past week at the Columbus Metropolitan Club say it won't be based on privately owned gas-powered cars forever.
I think we need to see 2 things kind of converge, and we are starting to see some of that happen. And that is industry needs to be moving kind of in the same direction as policy. So it's not unrelated to capitalism. But without some sort of incentives from a policy perspective, I feel like we don't quite get to these envisioned futures. I mean, that may seem far off from thinking about flying cars, but really it's not. I mean, if we require more safety systems in place, if we require more of these, more of a shift or a pivot to alternative fuels, we'll see that becoming a reality. And I think in the case of electrification, we are seeing industry kind of making those promises, and then policymakers echo that with policies and funding in place to support that.
I think some of the disconnect we see here is actually our expectations towards technology and thinking that some magic technology is going to come along and fix our mobility problems. And we don't need that. There was a study by the Bureau of Transportation Statistics in the U.S. Department of Transportation, and it showed that in the United States, 50% of all trips across all modes of transportation were less than 3 miles, and almost 30% of those trips were less than a mile. Any trip 3 miles or less should not require a car, should not require a vehicle, should not require a jetpack. It could require yourself, walking, biking, and public transit.
Well, you can watch more of this spirited discussion. It was a luncheon this past week by visiting the CMC website. And now to the results of the past week's election. Marysville schools are working on a path forward after their operating levy failed. This was the district's first request for an operating levy in 15 years to cover growing expenses for staff, utilities, and supplies. The school district administrator said there was a great need for the levy in light of cuts in the state funding and increased enrollment. We talked with voters before the vote took place.
That's something I have to budget out, that I can't pay for the gas. It keeps going up, and the food prices keep going up, and I don't see any end in sight right now the way this situation is. And why burden the more people with the tax?
I know the sentiment of no more taxation, but I'm also for as long as that taxation is reasonable and it's going for a good cause.
Voters rejected the measure by a 56 to 46% margin, with 100% of precincts reporting. And now district leaders say they have no choice but to make cuts. The results are in from Ohio's May primary special election, and you can see all of the results at 10tv.com at our website. Two people running for mayor of Gahanna really didn't have to worry about the election, but the city attorney says that he wants to change that. Gahanna has only two candidates, and the two highest vote getters would automatically move on to the general election in November. Despite that, the city charter requires a primary election, which costs the city thousands of dollars. The city's attorney said that he's going to push for change.
The next time is 2026, and I am going to do my best to bring this up and make sure that it gets changed more similar to the Ohio Revised Code, which does address this issue.
Gahanna Mayor Lori Jadwin defeated Steve Brown, who's an assistant principal in the Columbus City Schools District. But again, there's another election later this year. Now, from May to potentially August, state lawmakers are running out of time to pass a resolution allowing for an August election, and to make it happen, the state's constitution would need to be changed. Well, this past Wednesday, the Government Oversight Committee talked about what is called Senate Bill 92. It deals with holding a special election in August. At the same time, Republican lawmakers are still trying to pass two different resolutions that would require 60% voter approval for constitutional amendments. The Columbus Dispatch reports that Illinois billionaire Richard Uihlein has donated more than $1 million to a PAC supporting the effort to require 60% of the vote to pass a citizen-initiated constitutional amendment, as opposed to the current 50% requirement, which has been in place since 1912. The League of Women Voters opposes an August special election.
It's very clear why they're doing this, and they're doing this because they've become very desperate at this point to limit direct democracy.
If Republicans in the House can get together enough votes, voters soon decide whether it should take a 60% supermajority to amend the state constitution, and that is certainly something we'll be watching. We are seeing more protests related to the HJR1, or House Joint Resolution 1. Demonstrators have been protesting at the State House against changes to the state constitution. Again, it would require a 60% vote to approve any constitutional amendment, including the abortion amendment that could be on the November ballot. The Ohio Casino Control Commission is targeting 6 different businesses in the same city over illegal gambling operations. We've mapped out the locations for you. You see them there, all in Zanesville. 4 out of 6 we found are on Maysville Road. The Ohio Casino Control Commission says agents seized or disabled more than 400 gaming machines and confiscated a large amount of cash and documents. Concerning claims online, are veterans becoming sort of a bargaining chip in the debt ceiling debate? Our Verify team looks at what's on Facebook and Twitter before you click share. And distracted driving, there are new clues on whether the new crackdowns are working. But first, the story of the Kent State shooting, the lessons of the past, and what the university is doing today. Welcome back to Face the State. We do want to warn you, some of what you're about to see could be disturbing. This past week marked a dark milestone in our country's history. We have this photo. It's synonymous with the Kent State shootings. It was a snapshot in time at Kent State University. May 4th, this past Thursday, marked 53 years since gunfire at the campus helped lead to nationwide protests to end the Vietnam War. On May 4th of 1970, Ohio National Guardsmen opened fire on anti-Vietnam War protesters at Kent State University here in Ohio, killing 4 students and wounding 11. Guardsmen had been ordered onto the campus after a university building had been burned to the ground in protest. The guardsmen were only supposed to keep an eye on the demonstration, but students were enraged at their presence and began yelling and throwing stones at the soldiers. Without warning, and despite never receiving a direct order to shoot, the guards responded with rifle fire. 2 female students on their way to class were struck down and killed. Kent State closed early on May 4th, 1970, and students were sent home. The university remained closed until mid-June. Protests had been mounted on college campuses around the country that week against the war in Vietnam. These student strikes gained strength after the Kent State incident. In Washington, D.C., Republicans and Democrats are debating and negotiating the debt ceiling. The Republicans' first proposal was a plan that would come with deep spending cuts. Casey Decker, with our verified national team, examines whether those cuts would affect veterans.
If Congress doesn't raise the debt ceiling, the United States will default on its financial obligations as early as June 1st. House Republicans have passed a bill that would raise the debt limit, but it comes with conditions, including extensive cuts to the federal budget. Verify viewer Tom wanted to know whether those cuts would affect veterans' benefits. So, Tom, let's verify. Our sources are the text of the bill, House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, the Department of Veterans Affairs, the Congressional Budget Office, and David Wessel, a budget expert from Brookings. The bill imposes a cap on the total amount of discretionary spending each year. That covers everything from government salaries to weapons for the military. It doesn't touch mandatory spending, like Social Security, which is pre-approved from older laws. The CBO calculated that next year, nearly $230 billion would need to be cut, and over the next decade, about $3.6 trillion. So where would those cuts come from? Well, the bill doesn't say, meaning it'd be decided somewhere down the road by appropriations committees.
It's very easy to say, I want to cap discretionary spending, and I'll figure out later what gets cut. And so the people who propose the caps do this on purpose because they don't want to pick and choose. They don't want to make enemies of people whose program is going to be cut. And the people who oppose the caps say, well, if you impose this across the board, XYZ is going to be cut. So there's no way to win that argument.
The Biden administration says if these cuts are made to every department except defense, it'd require a 22% reduction to the VA. But House Republicans say they'd never approve cuts to either defense or veterans.
I will not bring a bill that cuts our veterans.
So while the bill doesn't specifically cut veterans' benefits, it doesn't specifically exempt them from the cuts either. This plan is also merely a starting point in the negotiations. It's likely to fail in the Democrat-controlled Senate. With your Verify, I'm Casey Decker.
What can we verify for you? Reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, or by simply emailing us at verify@10tv.com. Honor Flight Columbus took off with another plane filled with Ohio veterans. Robert Kuhl is the only World War II veteran on this past week's mission to Washington, D.C. at the age of 96. Other war vets on board the flight fought in Korea, Vietnam, and the Cold War eras. Many people helped welcome home 85 veterans after their trip to see their respective war memorials. And we certainly add our thanks to them for their service. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Coming up, we are going to be talking about strategies to support children with the On Our Sleeves movement at Nationwide Children's Hospital. And what new data shows about distracted driving in our state. Oh, this video of a near miss is going viral out of Virginia. A police officer, as you see there, barely escaped a crash on the side of a highway. Police say the teen driver of the car blew through the median from the other side of the road, going over 120 miles per hour. Well, that heart-stopping footage is what Ohio leaders say they hope to stop with the new distracted driving law here that took effect last month. And experts say it's working. 10 TV's Amy Steigerwald joins us with a look at those numbers.
Tracy, a new study linked to the Ohio Traffic Safety Council shows that just within the first month, distracted driving is down by 8% here in Ohio since that law went into place. Now, that study from Cambridge Mobile Telematics shows drivers are spending less time specifically on their phones while driving. Back in March, Ohio drivers spent about 1 minute and 39 seconds per hour on their phone while they were driving, and that timing has decreased by about 10 seconds since Ohio's new law went into place. Those numbers came from users who opted into having their phone identity tracked. Now, on top of this data, Ohio State Highway Patrol pulled over 200 fewer drivers in April for distracted driving violations compared to March. Now, right now, drivers who are cited for distracted driving get a 6-month grace period, but after that, the fines will be given. Back to you.
Amy, thank you for that. 10 TV fighting to end distracted driving through Maria's message. You can read more about our efforts right now at 10tv.com/Maria's message. And if you want to get involved, email Dom Taberry or send him a message on social media. Students gathered this past week to honor a boy who died by suicide while raising awareness for mental health and condemning bullying. The group told 10 TV's Richard Solomon they won't let his death go unnoticed.
In every sign you see, a message wishing something had been done, wishing some signs were noticed.
Nobody saw it coming, not one person.
Carrie-Anna Butcher wishes something had been picked up on.
He hid it from everyone so well. You know, he just let the bare minimum be known.
Because her 15-year-old son, Bryce Butcher, died by suicide earlier this week. Carrie-Anna tells me he was bullied. This young person, with hopes of joining the military one day, gone.
I don't ever want another parent to have to feel this, and I do not ever want another student, another kid, to feel like they have no options, to feel like there is no other choice but to not exist.
Change, 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 change.
In their grief, Bryce's classmates came together, standing up for him in mental health and condemning bullying.
Make a change, make a change.
This is video from a protest at the high school on Wednesday. After, students met at East Park to share stories about Bryce and come together.
Mental health has been stipulated for so long, so negatively. It shouldn't take kids killing themselves to get support.
The district released a statement saying, in part, a group of students at Logan High School were holding a gathering inside the building to voice concerns about mental health. We are listening to the concerns of our students. They go on to say the district will have staff on hand on Thursday for mental health support. Because she never, ever wants this to happen again.
Kindness begets kindness, begets kindness, begets kindness, not the other way around.
That was Richard Solomon reporting for us, and we want you to take note of your screen right now. If you or someone you know may be having suicidal thoughts, call or text the 988 hotline. It's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We also have some other resources for you that could be helpful at our website, 10tv.com. And some revealing findings in a just released survey. Half of parents believe their sons or daughters' mental health suffered because of social media over the past year. The On Our Sleeves movement for children's mental health says it's part of the solution. Parents and caregivers are too.
If your kids really don't feel that they can come to you, they will try to find answers potentially in the wrong places. And so that's why I feel it's very important to create that nurturing environment where your kids really do feel comfortable coming to you.
The way we react is going to determine whether a child will keep trusting us and keep coming back to us. So we really have to pause, breathe, and make it about the child. Listen, don't bombard them with questions or concerns or advice, and just, tell me a little bit about why you've been watching this. Tell me a little bit of why you posted XYZ.
And the survey shows a drop in the number of parents who feel comfortable having a conversation about mental health. Dr. Howitt says the best approach is to listen more than you speak, and she encourages parents to stay engaged with their teens and what they're watching and who they're communicating with find out who the latest influencer is, that kind of thing. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Every Tuesday during this month, we're going to be talking with the children's health experts about strategies to support our children. This past week, we talked with Dr. Howitt. She's the clinical director for On Our Sleeves. And first, we asked about advice for handling stress and anxiety.
At this time of year, with everything going on, what I typically hear teens and kids telling me is that it just feels overwhelming. It feels like they're standing in this giant mountain and don't know where to start. And so they freeze and they lose motivation. So, one thing we talk a lot about in therapy is breaking those assignments down, thinking about the daily steps they have to take to get those things accomplished. So instead of feeling like, oh my gosh, I have this 100-page book to read, thinking about, okay, I have 10 pages to read a day. And all of a sudden, it just feels a lot more manageable and that stress can decrease. We recommend parents and caregivers look out for changes in a child's mood. So feeling sad, irritable is a big sign. Kids tend to show their mood more with anger and irritability or a lot of nerves. And then you want to look out for changes in behavior, withdrawal, isolation, nothing seems fun, nothing seems interested. They just want to be alone, changes in their sleep and their eating. And we look for those signs to be almost every day for weeks at a time, right? Because kids and humans, really, adults too, change their mood and their behavior often. But we're looking for that persistent pattern where you're noticing, wow, this has been sticking around and it's starting to get in the way of their day-to-day life.
Sometimes it's challenging for parents to know when to intervene or to say something. Dr. Howitt told us it's about consistent conversation.
What we are really encouraging this month at On Our Sleeves is conversations, having daily check-ins, making it a habit. So at the dinner table or when you pick them up from school, bedtime, of just talking. And it doesn't have to be about serious things. We have fun conversation starters just to build the habit of conversation, but just to give you insight of what a child is going through. And then if you are worried, we have examples of questions you can ask to just check in about their mental health, what they're feeling and experiencing. And really, that's the best thing we could do is have a healthy relationship with them, have an understanding of what they're going through daily. And then I always recommend ask them what they think of, if they have a problem, what they think is a solution, how they think you can help, so that you can let them lead the problem solving. And again, let them know that you're there for them.
Some really good advice there. We will have more from the experts from Nationwide Children's Hospital next Tuesday, right here on 10 TV. Columbus City Council authorized the purchase of $25,000 for baby changing stations. It's part of a grant program to raise awareness and provide equal access to diaper changing tables throughout the city. We first introduce you to Matt Lofi, a dad who started a podcast to advocate for more resources in men's and gender-neutral bathrooms. Well, through this grant program, more than 130 businesses, organizations, and recreation parks facilities will have changing stations installed.
Such a wonderful opportunity to celebrate partnerships of private and public working together.
Whether you are a single sex or single gender couple, or on plenty of occasions, two friends going out and he's watching his son, we need to provide a platform and a place for people to simply change their child.
Common sense, right? This is great. Changing stations will be passed out on June 14th at the first ever Father's Family Resource Fair at Columbus Public Health. There will also be car seat lessons and gun lock box giveaways. Thank you so much for joining us here on Face the State. We wish you a great week and we say congratulations to all of the graduates out there. Take care.